Okay, hello everyone. Um, can everyone hear me okay? If you can, just type something into the questions, that would be awesome. Okay, looks like that we're good. All right, so my name's Sabrina Clark, and I'm with a company called Brand Yourself. And what we do is we actually help people look good online. So basically, what that means is when someone Googles your name, we want to make sure that you come across in the best light to college admissions, to potential employers, to potential dates. Basically, anyone who's potentially Googling you, we want to make sure that you look good. So personally, I do marketing at the company. So I'm in charge of making sure that we're getting our name out there as best as we can and doing all of the organic as well as paid marketing initiatives. So today we're basically going to cover how to control your first impression on the web. How do you control how you look when someone Googles you? And our agenda for today is, well, how important is your online presence? Why are we even giving this presentation? Why are we even talking about it? How important is it? Also, how to build content you want employers as well as any college admissions officers to be able to find. Ensuring that your content is visible. Once you create your content, how do we make sure that people can find it? And then we're going to go into a little bit about Brand Yourself and our story, which I think is really important because it speaks to kind of why we started was because a lot of people kind of had this issue of not being able to control how they looked online. So, how important is your online presence? Well, it's very important. About 1 billion names are Googled every day. So that means at any given moment, someone could be looking you up online. About 75% of HR departments are officially required to research candidates online. Um, and the percentage is even higher in terms of people that actually do, um, as well as any sort of admissions selection committee will be Googling you. Whenever you're out in the workforce or you're looking for your first internship, they're going to be Googling you. So it's incredibly important that you look good online. In fact, Brain Yourself, our company, actually started when our co founder, Pete, couldn't get an internship in college because employers were Googling him and they were finding a criminal with the same name. And Pete had no idea. He is a star student. He was in all of these clubs. He had a really high grade point average. And he was applying and applying to internships that he thought he could at least get an interview for. And he wasn't getting anything. And come to find out, one of the admissions officers for his school who was in charge of passing along resumes to companies said, you look really bad in Google. So he Googled his name and he was horrified to find out that there was another Pete Kistler who was a criminal. He was a drug addict. There was another sex offender. And, it was a comparable age. There wasn't a picture. People who were hiring him had no idea what he really looked like. So it actually could have been him. So he wasn't even getting an interview and getting the chance to kind of set things straight and let them know that, hey, I'm not a criminal. But maintaining a really good online presence isn't just about suppressing the negative content. I'm sure you've heard time and time and time again from professors, from teachers, from parents, from friends, from admissions officers that you need to clean up the negative and be careful on social media. But it's not just about that. It's about promoting your positive content as well. If you've done all of these great things as a student and it's not showing up online, it's like that they never happened. So when you're taking steps to make sure that you look good online, it's not just about burying anything negative that might be out there about you, but it's also about really promoting the positive. And we always like to say, the good results help you just as much as the bad results hurt you. The problem is that most of you are probably not well represented online. I'm sure all of you have a really great web presence, but you might not be well represented in the best light for years moving forward. You might fall into one of three categories. Of course, the first one is the negative. you're drunk in a bathtub at a party, maybe you got caught up at a party that you shouldn't have been, and now there's, a ticket record online. Maybe you're being confused for someone who had something negative. Maybe it's not something as necessarily as bad as this, like being drunk and naked in a bathtub, but maybe you had something that wouldn't really come across well to colleges. Maybe you were mentioned in an article about a cheating scandal, and you weren't involved in the cheating scandal, but somehow your name came up in the article, and that's what's showing up in Google results. If they don't look into it properly, then they're going to be deeming that as negative towards you. The other is the irrelevant category. You might have done some really great things in the past, but for some reason, the 5K you participated in fifth grade is showing up at the top of Google results when someone Googles you, instead of, the award you just won through your school, or that you made the honor roll, or that you just volunteered with this organization this year. Having something irrelevant can actually hurt you because they think that you haven't done anything great since then. Or the "hey, that's not me" category, which is what our co-founder Pete fell into. You might be able to search your name. So if you search Sabrina Clark, you'll actually come across an Atlanta Falcons cheerleader, who definitely is not me, but she comes up in my Google results. So I'm working to really build out a web presence for myself and make sure that I'm found instead of her. So just a really quick example, pretend you're a hiring manager, and this same exercise translates to college admissions. Say you have three potential people. One's, negative Nathan. You Google him, and the first page of results are terrible. Something negative about, maybe he cheated on someone, and the ex, put him on blast on a website or in a forum, or maybe he, had some really bad social media posts that are floating around out there, some pictures that, got into the image results. Then you have the second candidate is irrelevant Irene. She doesn't come across necessarily bad, but you can't find anything about her, which in some cases could be just as worse. You Google her and nothing comes up, or maybe it's other people of the same name and it's very clearly not her. They could get worried that you haven't really done anything notable to warrant getting online. And since it's so easy to create content online nowadays, it begs the question, why doesn't she have something online? And then, of course, you have the third candidate, who's, our all-star Anna, who we like to say, she has all of her qualifications on there, places she's volunteered, maybe her personal website, an article she's been mentioned in. Everything comes across really well. If you stack these three together and you've just seen their resumes, or you've just seen their admissions materials, you're probably going to pick Anna over the rest of them. And that holds true in most things in life. So clearly it's very important how you look online. So how do you build content now that you're going to want your admission officers to find, that you're going to eventually want your employers to find? The online presence that you're creating right now is going to translate years from now. So what you're doing right now will also help as you're, looking for your first internship, as you're looking for your first job. So the first thing to do, and it might seem a little crazy, is build a personal website, yourname.com. And you might say to yourself, why do I need a website? I'm just a student, I haven't really done anything. Well, your website can be your online resume, and it's a central location where anyone can find anything about you. And it'll also be a search result that is definitely about you, is definitely positive because you wrote it, and it'll definitely help you sort of look good online because you're the one that's controlling all of this content. So a couple of things that we recommend is WordPress, Weebly, Blogger, Tumblr, About.me. All of these are really great in creating websites. We actually recommend WordPress. It's free. It's very easy to use if you haven't used it already, and it's very SEO friendly, which will actually cover a little farther down the road. So I'm getting a few questions. Let me just go back and answer those. Okay. So one question I have right here is, would the universities ask me to show my Facebook? As of right now, I haven't seen any instance where they've clearly said, show us your Facebook. However, if you do have a Facebook, definitely make sure it's cleaned up, that your privacy settings are updated. They Facebook constantly updates their privacy settings. So I really recommend that you go through all the time and just make sure that you're not sharing things that you don't want to share. That being said, nothing is private. I'm sure you've heard this time and again. So you really want to make sure that you're making sure that you're not sharing anything that you wouldn't want an admissions officer to see. I know it can be difficult when you get wrapped up in getting posted in all these status updates and getting tagged in pictures, and it can be really fun and sharing it with your friends, but you need to understand that these things could find their way on to a Google search result. So just be really careful about making sure that you're not sharing them, anything that could really hurt you farther down the road. Okay. So another question I have is from Chris, and he asked, how far back do admissions officers look for content? Is Google the primary place where people look? Okay, so that's a two-parter. We always say Google because it's become, sort of a vernacular word in terms of looking someone up online or going to a search engine and searching for something. We say, you Googled it. That being said, there are other search engines, of course, Bing, that people could use to look you up online. And the results do tend to be a little different, but the practices hold true across the board. Everything that we talk about today will help you on both types of search engines. For the most part, people are looking you up on Google. If they are looking you up online, that's where they're looking you up. I've also heard of admissions officers searching for you individually on social media sites. So they will look you up on Facebook, and if your profile is public, they could look at it. They'll look you up on Twitter. If your tweets are public, they might look through a few of those. They also might look you up on a couple of other, Facebook sites, such as, a couple other social media sites, such as Instagram. And in that case, they'll actually go in and individually look at the social media sites. So that's where it comes in really important that you're being careful with what you're posting, and just be aware that if you post something that could be a little shady, that it could be found. In terms of how far back admissions officers look, in a Google sense, if someone looks you up online, for the most part, they're only going to look at the first or second page of results. We don't typically see people that will go farther back. And if you think about how you look for something online, you probably don't go farther back than the second page either. So in terms of getting a sense of what your online presence looks like, I would really focus on the first two pages, primarily the first page. In terms of social media sites and them looking at those individually, it's hard to say how far they go back, but I imagine they just want to take a spot test of it. So they'll go on to it. Maybe they'll take a look at a couple of your pictures for Facebook or a couple of your tweets, but I wouldn't imagine they're going back years and years. However, Google has a funny way of indexing, which is just a term for populating search results. Tweets, Facebook posts that might not be the most relevant. So if you Google yourself, you might find a tweet from way back in the day that maybe got a lot of activity. Maybe you made a funny joke or a funny picture was posted about you, but it might not be really PG. That might pop up on your Google search results, even though it happened, maybe a year or two ago. So when you are doing this overhaul, I can't stress it enough, go back over everything, because you just never know what'll show up on Google. Okay, I don't think I have. Okay, so I got another question, ooh, from another Sabrina. What if you're not on any social media? Okay, so we'll actually cover this a little further down in the presentation, but just to give you a quick answer, get on social media. You might be hearing from other, admissions professors or, counselors in your school saying, avoid social media if you can, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. The key is maintaining your social media in a positive way, and that's using it as a way that you can really come across in the best light. In order to gain a really good online presence, social media is key. So if you don't have any social media, I definitely recommend, getting on LinkedIn, getting on Twitter, and making sure that it's more of a professional account. Google Plus. You can get on Facebook, but that's more, personal. If you don't want to tie that in, you don't have to by any means. And there's also, so many other social media sites that you can go to that'll really help. And we'll cover all of those a little further down. So just to get back in terms of, creating that website, go to WordPress. It's free. You can get a site up about yourself in an hour, and it doesn't have to be crazy. It could be something as basic as this, and just make sure that you fill it all with content about you, and use your name everywhere that you can. It's very important from a search engine standpoint that you're using your name throughout everything. And for that reason is people are searching for your name, and that's what we call a keyword. And if people are searching for your name, so Sabrina Clark, then it's going to scrub and pull everything that has Sabrina Clark in it online. So if you want something to show up for you, you want to make sure you're using your name throughout. So for example, this very basic website is one of our coworkers, Trevor. So he uses his full name, at the header. He uses it in the navigation. He uses it on the title. He uses it in the description. And instead of referring to himself, as I am a senior or I am pursuing medical science, it's Trevor is a senior. Trevor is pursuing medical science. And he uses his full name. So rather it's Trevor Elwell is pursuing medical science. Okay. So I just got a quick question from Chris. Is it best to include middle names to avoid false hits and confusion with others? Okay, so here is where it's really a case-by-case basis. You're going to want to use consistency across the board. So whichever name that you pick, you want to make sure that you use it throughout. So, and excuse me if I'm butchering it, but Chris Talixon, if you find that your name's super competitive and you want to include a middle initial or a middle name, then you need to make sure that you use that throughout everything. And that means your applications, your resume, your website, your social media sites. If you're just going to stick with Chris Talixon, that's okay too. However, you want to make sure you use that across the board. And you might be confused with other people. You might have a very common name where a lot of people have it. So that's where it's really important that you're building really great content that'll stand out. But again, if you do choose to use a middle name, that's totally fine. You just want to make sure that you're using that everywhere, because if people aren't searching for you with your middle name, then it really becomes pointless. Okay, so as I mentioned before, get on social networks. Search engines absolutely love social networks. Oh, I just see I got a message from Chris. I did pronounce it right. Awesome. Thank you so much. So, getting on social networks. Search engines absolutely love ranking social networks for a number of reasons. They stay relevant. You're constantly posting to them. They are about you. You know, you are the person that created that login, you're the person that created that site. So Google knows it's about you. So if they're searching for your name, they're going to be looking for social media sites that'll come up about you. So some of our favorites, and that they tend to rank really well, are Facebook. Again, if you are a little uncomfortable with creating a Facebook, that's fine. You can create a Google Plus. You know, it is Google search engine, so of course it does tend to rank really well if you use it right. Twitter, another really good one that you might not have heard of is Quora, and that's a questions and answers social media network. And basically, you can create a profile, you can ask questions, you can answer questions, and it's meant to be, you know, an information hub. But it's a really active community, and it can really help you get a lot of really good search results out of it. Another one is LinkedIn. You know, you should definitely have a LinkedIn in any professional setting moving forward. Another interesting one is Meetup. You can actually, you know, make events and invite people to them, and it gets a really high level of engagement. And for that reason, Google tends to rank it really well. And of course, there are a ton of other social media sites. There isn't necessarily any bad ones. Again, it's just a matter of um, ranking them really well and ensuring that they're filled out correctly. Just to go back to social media, one thing that'll really help you to get them to rank well is to fill them out to the best of your ability. And that means filling out your name, your full name. So your Twitter handle, my Twitter handle, I couldn't get just Sabrina Clark. So my Twitter handle is Sabrina Clark 1. And you want to make sure that it's your full name with maybe an identifier. And then you want to make sure that you're filling everything out. So the About Me section, if you can add a link to your website that you created, your personal website, you want to make sure that you fill out if you can post a photo, post a photo. Just make sure that you fill it out completely, and that'll really help it rank well. Oh, I just got another question. Does YouTube count as a social network? Yes, YouTube counts. Again, you want to make sure that you get a username that's your name, and you want to fill out everything to the best of your ability. Another cool one that's similar to YouTube that also ranks really well is a site called SlideShare. And if you haven't used it in any of your classes, it's basically an online presentation site that you can post your presentations. And if you're students, I'm sure you're making a ton of presentations. So if you have something, you know, for science or for math or social studies, you can actually, you know, put it on SlideShare. It's just slideshare.com. And it basically becomes an online PowerPoint presentation, and it becomes a search result for you. And it's also something that's positive, because if an admissions officer comes across it, it's your schoolwork. So that's also a really good one to get on. Okay, and then the third one is to start blogging. Anyone can be blogging, whether it's on your own blog that you created on your website, or if maybe you do a guest post on another blog. The point is that you want to be creating really good content about you. And it doesn't, if you don't think you're a great writer, and you know, you don't think you have anything to write about, you can pick an area that interests you. You know, maybe you're really into sports and you want to write reaction pieces to someone that you want to be able to write reaction pieces to someone that already wrote a blog post. You can write a reaction to that. That's fine as well. So definitely start blogging. Then we have, all right. The last is post interesting content. So these are 2 tweets from our CEO, Patrick, and they're just to show you an example of good content that'll rank well versus bad content. The first one is, you know, awesome article in New York Times about Washington, check it out. So what it's doing here is it's providing something actionable. There'll probably be a link to it, and that'll rank really well, and it'll also come off in a good light. Bad content is, don't know what to eat for lunch, help, school sucks. We've seen all of these people on Twitter and on Facebook where they're posting meaningless content. Um, and the real key is if someone's going to come across this, you want it to be something positive. If an admissions officer were to Google you right now and they came across a tweet where you didn't know what you wanted to have for lunch, um, it's not showing you in the best light. So definitely make sure to make sure that you're really posting interesting content as well as content that will reflect good on you. Okay, we're getting a couple of questions that I just want to go back and discuss. Okay, Nancy, you came in late. What are you discussing? Okay, so we're discussing how to look good in Google so that when people look you up, admissions officers, employers, how they look you up to make sure that you come across in the best light. So that's what we're talking about. Okay, Leonardo, is it possible that someone took your IP network and used it in a bad way? That would be I'm not really quite sure exactly what you were trying to get across in the question. If you could just restructure that real quick and send it back, that'd be awesome. Okay, so Chris, can one backdate blog posts and other posts to fill in for past years when you haven't done anything online? Okay, that's interesting. You could backdate something, however, the search result will not index with a backdate. Meaning, even if you backdate the post to, say, October of last year, the search result will still index for today, which could come across even worse. So I would definitely not, backdate any blog posts. In terms of making up for lost time necessarily, there's a couple things that you can do. One is starting immediately so you don't lose any more time. And the second is you can bring up stuff that's happened to you in the past and just talk about it now. People every day are starting to blog. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if you're just starting to get content about you online. In fact, you guys are starting at like the perfect time to really create a great online presence for the time that you eventually do have a job and are in the workforce. So you are already one step ahead. What I would definitely recommend is to maybe discuss if you were featured in maybe an article and you want to bring it up to the current, say you were a volunteer for an organization 2 years ago, you can write a blog post about that. Just make sure you're still dating it for the current date and you should be fine. Okay, so, and then we said this before, keep it clean or keep it private. If you can't read this, this is basically a Facebook rant from someone who was basically bashing her boss, and she forgot that she was friends with her boss online, which you might be considering, oh, I definitely wouldn't make that mistake. I couldn't be that stupid. But you never know who you're friends with. You never know who they're friends with and who they could be sharing it with. So definitely keep it clean, and if you can't do that, make sure that you can keep it private. Okay, so this is where we're coming to sort of SEO tactics. And this is just basically making sure that your content is visible. You created really great content. You created social media profiles, you created a personal website, you started blogging, you're really a rock star in terms of creating content. And for whatever reason, it might not show up. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and that's plain and simple, search engines make mistakes. So if you have, say, a personal website and it's not ranking, could be a number of things. Either the search engine doesn't understand what it's about, they might not think it's a credible source, or they simply can't find it. But there's a couple of things that you can do, and it's called search engine optimization, or SEO for short. And that's the process of making sure that your content shows up for a specific keyword. And basically what we mean here by specific keyword is your name. So There are a couple of basic factors, and I just want to start this off by saying, SEO it can be a very complicated and time-consuming process. There are entire industries dedicated to SEO. However, there are a few basic things that you can know right now and that you can implement in order to make sure that your content ranks well. One type of factor is an on-page SEO. So in the case of helping your personal website rank, this is your personal website. So that's, the architecture of it, the basic structure of it, which is why we really like WordPress because they're already structured to rank really well. If you don't have an SEO background and you don't understand, how to build a website so it ranks well, I would definitely use something like WordPress, which already has some things built in that'll help it rank. The other thing is the keyword and the content. So making sure that your name is, everywhere, making sure that the content is really well written and that it makes sense. You can actually be penalized for a couple of things that we call keyword stuffing. So if you just write a personal website, Sabrina Clark, and all I put in it is Sabrina Clark, Sabrina Clark, Sabrina Clark, Sabrina Clark, Sabrina Clark, that's called keyword stuffing. So you'll actually be penalized for that. So you want to make sure that you're not only creating a website that has the keywords in it, but it's in a context that makes sense. And the other thing is the relevancy of it. If you keep the site active, it'll definitely rank well. That's why social media is so great because by nature you're keeping it active. Then there are also a couple of off-page factors such as links. So the more links that a piece of content online gets, the more it'll tend to rank. This is one of the reasons why news articles tend to rank really well because people link to them. They say, hey, check this out. I can't believe this. They'll send it to their friends via email. They'll post it on social media. And all of those links are creating authority and helping it rank well. And the other thing is social sharing. So if I'm sharing it on Twitter or if I'm posting it on Google Plus or, a site like that, then all of those things can tend to really help. Okay, I'm getting a question. Okay, I was locked out of my Facebook. What could be another option that could be a bit more professional? Okay, so this is going a little bit back to social media. Again, some people tend to not like Facebook because it is so personal. You're connecting with so many personal people and sharing personal things. So there are so many other options that are more professional. LinkedIn, definitely get on LinkedIn. That is an absolute must nowadays. Google Plus is a really good one. I would also create a Twitter. You can create an Instagram, but be really careful about the pictures that you're posting if it's public. I also would recommend creating a couple of other sites. So we talked about SlideShare, we talked about Meetup, we talked about you can create a Pinterest. That's also a really good one. Really, any social media site will help. It's a matter of what content you post on it. So you can really make any social media site professional. Okay, so back to SEO. Okay, so we talked a little bit about some SEO things as I was going through the beginning of the presentation, but these are some more of the specific steps you can take to help your content rank really well. The first is getting your domain name. If you don't know what a domain name is, basically that's, CNN.com, that's a domain name. MSN.com, that's a domain name. Facebook.com. So it's the actual name of the site. So you want to be able to purchase a domain name for yourself. And basically that will mean you want yourname.com. So sabrinaclark.com. If you can't get your full name, maybe it was taken, then you definitely want to get, sabrinaclarkonline.com. Or I might get sabrinaclarkmarketing.com because I am a marketing professional. You want to get an identifier that still keeps your full name intact, but it adds to the domain. So when people are searching for you, it'll rank really well. It's not expensive. It costs about $10 a year that you can register on sites like hover.com, hover.com, as well as GoDaddy. And basically, you want to register it for as long as possible. And that's a couple of reasons. For one, it adds authority to the domain. It lets a search engine know that this domain is definitely about you because you purchased it for so long. And um, it also prevents someone else from finding your domain, purchasing it, and then using it for their own good. So you don't want to lose your domain to someone else. Okay, we're getting another question. Um, Sounds like ranking your content is more about job applications as opposed to college application. Is this correct? I find it hard to believe that you need all this web presence for college admission. Can you explain? Of course. And this can definitely seem, overwhelming, and I'm throwing a lot of information at you. And the reason I'm doing that is because you can take some things that you want to do and choose to do some other things. These are just options to get a web presence. But the fact of the matter is it's just as important in a college application setting than it is in a job application setting. If the college admissions officers, they're Googling you as part of their process. That is plain and simple. I believe the statistic is about 85% will Google you before they even look at your application. So it's incredibly important that you're coming across in a positive light. Now, that being said, you do have the benefit that you are, high school students. You are coming across in a way that um, it's very easy to identify how old you are. So if someone Googles you and they come across, a lawyer, they know it's not you. However, if someone of the same name has a bad result and it could be you, maybe it was a drug dealer, you don't want that showing up. You also don't want anything to not show up because it actually hurts you because it's not helping your application as best as it can. In the same vein, if you have really positive things about you online, then the college admissions officers are going to Google you. They're going to see, oh, they have a website up, they're blogging, they're on social media and they're talking about, the field that they're interested in, and they're being really engaging and they're having awesome things. That almost serves as your second resume. And with college admissions becoming so difficult nowadays, and with people getting picked over certain things, this is just one more thing that you can add to your resume that will make you stand above the thousands upon thousands of other applicants that are out there putting in their application. Does that make sense? I'd be happy to clarify if you wanted to add some more. Okay, so again, we talked about this, structuring your site well. Again, I can't stress enough using WordPress. They have an SEO plugin already, so it's super easy to get started. Okay, we also talked about this, using your real name. So this is an example of a really good Twitter account. So this is Patrick Ambron. He's our CEO. So he mentions his full name. His handle is his full name. Patrick Ambron is the co-founder and CEO of brandyourself.com. And then he talks a little bit about himself and he puts a link to his website. This would be an example about a bad one. You have no idea what his name is. He doesn't say it in the short little bio that he have. He just says fam and friends for life, which is all great and stuff. But it really doesn't help search engines find him. And if an admissions officer were to find him, you'd have no idea who he was. They'd probably skip over it. So that doesn't help either. And then the last thing is linking all of your content together. You want to make sure that you're linking, your website to your social media sites. If you have a LinkedIn, you want to maybe put a link to your website as well as maybe your Twitter. And by linking everything together, what you're doing is you're actually creating authority, and that authority will help everything rank well in Google. And if an admissions officer were to Google you, everything would show up together, and it would become very clear that everything was about you, which comes across in um, the best light. So those are some, basic things that you can start doing to create content, and making sure that it ranks well. And I couldn't stress enough how important it is that you come across well when admissions officers are Googling you, when they're looking you up online. You want to be able to come across in the best light, and it's really important that you're taking steps to do so. I've also been seeing and hearing from some college admissions that with so many online resumes as well, and with so many online applications and capabilities in that sense, it's really moving towards they're strictly going to be caring about what's about you online. So definitely make sure that you're posting really great content about you out there. So that kind of brings us to the last part of our presentation. And if you feel free to post questions in the sidebar, I absolutely will answer them. But this is where I'm kind of talking a little bit about Brand Yourself and kind of what we do, and how I think we could actually help you in the college admissions process. So I talked a little bit about it, but we actually started when our co-founder couldn't get an internship in college, because people were Googling him and finding a criminal. So we actually decided to create what is now Brand Yourself. We were a startup that was started in college at Syracuse University, and the reason it started was traditional companies were charging thousands upon thousands of dollars, and we wanted to create a simple way for you to be able to control everything online. So this kind of ties into everything that we talked about. Your head might be swimming right now with all the information. So what we did is we created Brand Yourself, which actually helps you streamline what we call the online reputation management process. And that's just a fancy, phrase for talking about making sure you look good online. So we created a free do-it-yourself product, and what that does is it helps you control the search engine optimization process, making sure that you have all your content in one place and that you can manage it in a simple way, without having to go crazy or worrying too much about the technical aspects of SEO. And we also have services which are probably a little far over your guys' reach, but basically you'll get a custom person who will actually build out your online presence for you. But just to discuss about online reputation management, like I said, it's filling your first page of Google results with positive, relevant content that you control. So instead of, a link that's not about you, a link that's from years ago, something positive, we want to make sure that everything is showing up about you. So when those colleges are looking you up, everything's coming across in the best light. So this is kind of how Brand Yourself works. What you're going to do is you submit a link. So let's just say you're going to go with your LinkedIn profile. What you're going to do is you're going to submit your LinkedIn profile into our online tool. We'll actually analyze it and provide specific steps that you can take to make it show up higher. So we're doing all the crazy SEO stuff for you. So this might be a little bit difficult to see, but this is what'll show up when you put in your LinkedIn profile and we give you what we call your boost steps. So we'll tell you to set your name. We'll tell you to fill out a headline. We'll tell you how to set your summary. And we'll actually give you boost points along the way. So it's kind of like a fun game where you can earn points and you can actually earn a score in terms of how you're looking online. Okay, I'm just getting a couple of questions. And one is, to what extent is it worthwhile to spend hours making my own website if I'm aiming for a most competitive university? I hope it is less relevant because I am busy studying, volunteering, and doing many other things. That is absolutely a great question. What I would definitely recommend doing is not spending too much time on it in terms of how good it looks, how the aesthetics of it. Just make sure the content is really well there. You can get a really basic website up with all the content you need in under an hour. If you're not familiar with WordPress.com, it might take a little bit longer, but go to WordPress, create an account, create a website, and they actually have templates where you can actually just basically, um, plug in what you want. So you can have one template that'll just have, a basic site um, that'll have like your name and maybe a small about you paragraph, which I'm sure you have plenty of that content if you've already been doing applications. You can have a couple links to your social media sites. Maybe you'll have a link to your portfolio or anything about you online. Maybe if you have some writing pieces, you can put that on there. You can put you can actually scan your paper resume and put it up as a PDF real quick, and that could just serve as your website. There's a lot of things that you can do that are really quick and will really help you. You don't have to go crazy. I don't want you to think that this is something you need to spend hours and hours doing. Um, as long as you're getting some things across, it's definitely okay. Um, okay. So I'm getting another question about slides. Okay, I'm not seeing the other slides. And what do you do about privacy? Okay, which slides are you not seeing? If you can just send me a quick question to clarify. If the presentation went dark, I can see what I can do on our end. But in terms of privacy, um, like I said, keep things private that you don't want to get out there. So I understand if you want to hide your phone number, that's absolutely okay. Email, the fact of the matter is your email is going to get out there. So if you want to put it there, that's fine. There are a couple of plugins that you can use in WordPress that'll actually hide your email. If you put it online, it's actually a button that someone can press and say, send me an email, and they'll be able to send you an email that way without actually having to put your email out there. Again, if you're not comfortable putting information about you out there, such as your resume, black out your address, but make sure all the relevant content's there. People are going to be finding it anyway, so definitely take steps to make sure that you're private about specific information, such as your personal information. But in terms of accomplishments you've done, your name, your picture, don't be too concerned about getting that out there. Okay. So I'm still seeing the post interesting content slide, and that's a comment from Sabrina. Okay, it seems like our session's still doing fine. If you still have an issue, I would recommend signing back in or leaving and coming back in and have them, just refresh your page and you should be good. Okay, my next question is from Brian Bell. Okay, this is going to be a difficult one. Okay, so Brian says, when I Google my name, Brian Bell, I find a lot about the band member from Weezer. Sadly, I am not a member of Weezer. No, because that would be awesome if you were, Brian. In the next couple of Google pages are architects, photographers, actors, etc. Basically, I'm not even there. Even with so many others with my name, can I still get my actual self closer to the top through the brand yourself system? Okay, so this is a phenomenal question. We get it all the time. There's going to be instances where your name is a very common name, and you're going to have, famous people that have done a lot or have been around doing a lot for a long time. So it can be difficult to compete with them. What I would recommend here, Brian, is picking a middle initial or picking a middle name and going by that and really trying to build out content that way. And then you can actually boost that name with your middle initial through our system. If you find out, if you find that that's still a little difficult, then you're really going to have to ramp up your efforts to try to get above, um, the other architects, photographers, things like that. In terms of getting above Weezer, unfortunately, I don't think you will, which is why you really want to pick something that'll set you apart. And I think that's where a middle initial will really help you out in this situation. Okay, so if I don't, all right, seems like our presentation is still doing, um, okay, so Brian just asked another question, which is, okay, so his middle name is Fernandez. Is something I should use? That's his middle name. Okay, I would definitely use that. I would either say, Brian Fernandez Bell or Brian F. Bell. Do a quick Google search just to see, sort of what your competition is like with both, and then go with the one um, that you kind of have the best chance of getting content about you out there. And then once you make that decision, use that everywhere. So say you pick Brian F. Bell, use Brian F. Bell on your website, use it on your social media sites, use it on any blog posts you write. Basically anything you do online, make sure you're using Brian F. Bell then, and you should be good. Okay, so going back to the presentation, so these are the boost steps for a LinkedIn profile. So this is kind of, what Brain Yourself the system will do. It'll analyze your LinkedIn, it'll give you steps for how to improve it, and then you can kind of take those steps and you'll get a score at the end. What we do is we'll give you alerts. So say you submit your LinkedIn, we'll give you an alert if it bumps off the first page. So you're constantly, being aware of how you look online, so you don't have to keep checking. You'll know we'll kind of take care of that for you. And then what we also do is we give you a Brain Yourself profile that's already optimized to rank high in Google. So we already took all the SEO steps in terms of optimizing it for your name. And then this actually becomes a really good piece of content that you can use as a search result online. And, we created them very professionally. They basically read as an online resume. So if you're back to the question about, not having enough time to dedicate to building a website, you can actually use your Brain Yourself profile as your own website. It's a central location where you can post your resume, you can post everything about you, you can link to your social media sites, and then we also have something called a social stream. So anytime you post to social media, it'll actually show up in your Brain Yourself social stream, and that actually keeps the Brain Yourself profile updated, which helps it rank really well in Google. And then the other fun thing about it is we can actually tell you who's Googling you. So if you have a Brain Yourself profile and someone Googles you and clicks on it, we'll actually tell you who it is. So if you, maybe submit your Brain Yourself profile to a college admissions process, or if they're Googling you and come across it, you can actually see if the colleges are Googling you, which is kind of a cool thing because then you can track if they've actually looked at your application. You can see how long they spent on your profile. If they spent a long time on it, that's definitely a good thing. So we definitely, if you want to create a profile, it is free to use. So definitely sign up and do that. And then again, we also have our concierge services, which is probably not something, it's probably a little far above what you guys need, but this is where someone will actually do all the work for you. So that is basically our presentation. I want to thank you guys. I also have a promo code for you. The DIY tool that I was talking about, it is free to use, and most of you will only need the free version. However, there is an option to upgrade for some more features. It's about $99 a year, but there's a promo code here, College Week Live, and we'll give you 20% off for being in the presentation. And if by any chance you have a need for the concierge services, we'll give you 10% off. My email is there as well as my phone number. If you have any questions at all following the presentation, then please feel free to give me a call, send me an email. I'd be more than happy to help. This is what we do. So if you have any final questions, I'm going to go through kind of our last questions. Feel free to post some. Okay, so I have one here. Hello, I Googled my name and I found my mathematics Olympiad report where I received a gold award. Would this give a better impression of me to the officers? Definitely. That would definitely give you a good impression. So, since it's coming up, that's definitely a good thing. But we want to make sure that this is staying active and staying high in your Google search results. So what I would recommend doing is copying the link for that and sharing it on your social media sites, and also putting it on your personal website. And that could be your brand yourself profile or your actual personal website that you've created. And what that'll do is it'll make sure that people are finding it even if they're not finding it in Google. But that's definitely a good one. Make sure that it keeps ranking. Okay. I'm getting a couple questions here that I think are okay. Sabrina Smith is asking, where is the information? Okay, Sabrina, I think that you might be having some issues on your end. I double checked with our presentation, the person who's in charge of putting on our presentation, and I don't know why your slides aren't working, but if you can't see the information, I can actually, read it off to you. My email is S as in Sabrina, Clark, CLARK, at brandyourself.com. And my phone number is 845-642-1302. And if you're still not seeing it, you can actually refresh the page, or I'm being told you can actually watch this presentation on demand. And then you'll be able to email me for some additional information. I'd be more than happy to reach out. Okay. So do we have any other questions? All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much for participating today. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to help. And you can sign up for a free Brand Yourself account at brandyourself.com. Again, free to use, so we definitely recommend it. And if you have any questions about that, give me a call.